In this episode of Student of Life with Joe Hafner, we address the question, how do you overcome brain spin and piñata mind? Joe will examine defensive thinking, including how to attack brain spin, 4 steps to defeat piñata mind, and much more. For show notes, links, and other resources, please visit studentoflifepodcast.com/11. That's studentoflifepodcast.com/11.
Hey everybody, this is Joe Hafner and welcome to the Student of Life podcast. This is the podcast that is all about fulfillment, personal fulfillment and professional fulfillment, and what do you do to strive to achieve fulfillment in your life. We're up to our episode 11 today, and today we're going to talk about what I call defensive thinking. Specifically, kind of 2 sides of the same coin of defensive thinking. One thing is what I call brain spin, and the other is what I call piñata mind. And how do you end up with those things? How do you escape them and overcome them? And how do you get off playing defense and go into play offense? So when we get started here, let's talk about brain spin. Brain spin is what I call the thing where your mind is fixated on a single thought that you can't drive out of your mind. You see it a lot when people are worried. Like for instance, when the recession hit, if you haven't heard my story back in episode 2, you might want to go back and listen to it, where I tell the whole story of how, I went through the recession, how that changed me and how it got me on this path to seeking fulfillment in my life. But back during the recession, I remember we owned a whole bunch of rental properties. We were upside down on them. We owed money. There was more money going out than money coming in. It was just a horrible situation. And I remember one October, all of the tax bills came due. And when those tax bills came due, I went to the post office box and there was a big stack of them there. Picture a stack of about 42 tax bills, all from the county, all, maybe $1,000 a piece on average for those tax bills, and knowing that there were still city tax bills coming due on a lot of those properties as well. And so what happened after that, even though for a long time I didn't even open them, I just took them and put a rubber band around, put them away because I knew we couldn't afford to pay them at that time. But I knew that we owed $40,000 or more in property taxes on those properties, and there was no money to pay it. We were bringing money every month to pay the debt that was due just on the notes on the property. I remember I spent lots of time where in my head I was just fixated on, how am I going to pay these tax bills? Oh my gosh, we owe this money on the taxes. How am I going to pay it? And just spun and spun and spun in my brain. And so that's where the term brain spin comes from, because you are just fixated on this thought. I have an agent in my office who tells me when he's not meeting his goals and he knows he's fallen short of his goals, his brain just spins in circles saying, I need more deals. I need more deals. I need more deals. I got to find buyers. I got to find sellers. I got to do something. What makes brain spin and defensive thinking is the idea that it's just spinning around, and your brain's not working out solutions. Your brain's going too fast and it's just fixated on that one thought and going over and over and over again. And it's just creating anxiety and stress, and it's creating the inability to think clearly, and it's just spinning in circles. And it's defensive because you are allowing your brain to happen to you. You are allowing outside influences, outside problems to have an impact on your ability to function because you're allowing that spin to happen. So this is a little off the wall, but one of my favorite examples of brain spin is from one of my favorite shows. Anybody who knows me is already saying Seinfeld because they know that's my favorite show of all time. There's an episode where George Costanza is working for the Yankees, and he's in a meeting and he's eating shrimp like crazy, shrimp cocktail. And the guy who's there turns to him and says, "Hey, George, the ocean called. They're out of shrimp." And George is sitting there with this shrimp in his mouth, looking at him, not knowing what to say. And so the exchange ends, and he didn't say anything. And he spends the rest of the show fixated on what he should have said and how he should have responded. He has this idea he's going to say, well, the jerk store called and they're out of you, which is kind of stupid that that's what he would say. But anyway, he spends this show thinking about how he wants to say that and he wish he had said it. And he ends up going back and finding a way to recreate a meeting so he can create the same scenario and give him the jerk store line. And then the guy who he did the line with comes back with another one-timer that he can't overcome. And that's how that ends. But the point of that story is that brain spin that George was going through is very, very similar. You can understand that because we've all gone through that, where we've had an interaction with somebody that didn't go the way we wanted it to. And you just sit there thinking over and over, I should have said this, or I should have done this, or I could have done that. And we all have those moments of regret with what we said. And if you're not careful, it can send you into a tailspin. If you're not careful, it can suck the energy out of you and you end up on defense instead of going on offense. So the idea is to, when you have brain spin, to flip the script and go from defense to attacking on offense. And brain spin is one of those things that, as I talk to small business owners, I hear that that's something that they deal with a lot. Because, when you own a small business, there's always something that you're concerned about. There's always something that's a point of stress. There's always something that's a point of fear. And that's when that brain spin happens. So the question is, what do you do? Is brain spin something that you suffer from? If you suffer from it, how do you stop yourself from falling into that trap of the brain spin? My advice on this is to go on offense. When you have brain spin, you need to go on offense. And really, it's a real simple process. Just remember the word spin. And if you take each of the aspects of the word spin, there's a little exercise you can do to stop the spin and get yourself back on an even footing where you can take control of your thoughts and go on offense and come up with solutions instead of staying on defense and just sitting there with stress and anxiety and worry and letting that just work on you like that. So spin. S stands for stop. Stop means you stop. You acknowledge that the brain spin is going on, and you just take in the fact that, hey, this is happening. You admit that it's happening and quit letting the spin happen. You are actively engaging your brain into something other than just letting it passively spin like that, right? So that's S. P in spin stands for process. Process means that you're going to think about whatever it is that your brain is spinning about, and you're going to dissect it a little bit and ask yourself the question, is this something that I have any control over? Is this something where I might be able to step in and make some changes or take some action to alleviate whatever is causing this stress and this fear and this worry? And so you're processing it and you're figuring out what the problem is. Is this a legitimate problem that's causing my brain to act this way? So that's SP. Then you have I. I stands for intervene. If there is a way that after thinking about, if you say, well, this is a legitimate problem that I have legitimate options on how to go on offense and solve it, now you can intervene and take steps to start putting on paper what your solutions are going to be. How are you going to attack this problem? What are you going to do instead of just sitting there letting that thought over and over spin in your head? So you want to start working on productive solutions. How am I going to solve this? And then on the other side of that same coin, if you determine that either you have no control over it, or it's not a legitimate problem, it's not a legitimate worry, then you need to say, okay, you need to make it clear to yourself, this is not something that I have any power or control over, and I just need to understand that so I don't let my mind keep spinning trying to come up with solutions that aren't there. So then there's the N. The N stands for next. Next means that if it's something that you're able to do, you know that the next time this happens, you're going to take out whatever you've been working on and either start implementing your solution, or you're going to continue to work on your solution. You're going to continue to do the steps you need to intervene and make things happen. All right. So then if it's something that you have no control over, you can't go back and adjust. Let's say that you had a conversation with a client, or you had a conversation, or even better, you had a conversation with a stranger that you're never going to see again. You didn't like the way you interacted with them, and you felt like you weren't yourself, or you were mean, or you didn't show yourself the way you wanted to. And now you're sitting there spinning it over and over in your mind, wondering how you could have done things differently. Well, aside from deciding, here's the things I need to do when I meet other strangers, there's really not a whole lot you can do to fix that interaction you had with that person. And to sit and let spin in your brain is very unproductive. So the next there would be, you're letting it go. And if you can't let it go, you need to come up with something that you're going to switch to, and the next would be the next thing that you're going to think of or work on. So when that thought pops in your mind, you know, I've already worked through the steps, the SPIN, and I know that I'm not going to waste time spinning my brain on that. And instead, I'm going to think about this instead. And maybe it's you think about something to do with your business. You think about, it could be you think about your sports team that you like. It could be that you think about, how can I show some love to my spouse? Whatever it is, come up with something else productive that you can replace that other thought with. So that would be how you end brain spin. Use SPIN. All right. So then we have Piñata Mind. Piñata Mind is like the opposite of brain spin. Brain spin is you're fixated on one thought. Piñata Mind is your brain is so distracted that there's hundreds of thoughts going on, you can't think of anything. And the reason I call it Piñata Mind, there's other names for this that you'll hear other people use. When I think of Piñata Mind, I came up with it because one day I spent the whole day working, right? Have you ever had a day like this where you spend the whole day working really hard? You feel like you're doing something, you're really busy, but when you look back on it, you realize that you worked a little bit on this and a phone call interrupted you, and you got distracted and you worked on something else, and then someone walked in your office and interrupted you there, and then something happened where you had to leave the office and go to a meeting, and then the person you were meeting with wasn't paying attention to you. They were looking at their phone doing texting or something, and they were distracted and taking phone calls, and so you didn't get anything accomplished in the meeting. And the day just goes on like that, where you're working and doing stuff, but nothing's getting done. At the end of the day, you're just exhausted, but you have nothing to show for it. You didn't move any of your big rocks forward. You didn't really accomplish anything, but man, you were busy all day. And I call that Piñata Mind because I picture a kid's birthday party where they take that poor kid, they put the blindfold on him, they spin him around in circles and hand him a stick. And then they say, okay, and they point him in the direction of a piñata. And some adult is holding a rope on the piñata and moving it around while that kid's swinging wildly with that stick all over the place, trying to hit that piñata, and he can't hit it because the adult's moving it every time he's getting close. So I call it Piñata Mind because that kid my mind is just like that kid swinging that stick wildly all over the place, never hitting anything. And that's exactly what happens when I have Piñata Mind. And that is a negative, defensive brain posture. It's defensive because, once again, you're not taking charge of the situation. You are allowing circumstances to eat up your energy and your confidence because you're allowing all of those factors to come in and mess with your mind and get you going in 100 directions at once. It's kind of like I've used this analogy before. You have a cell phone with every app on the phone open, plus you're making phone calls and taking photos with it. Well, pretty quickly, that cell phone is going to run out of juice completely. That's what happens when you have Piñata Mind. You are so diverted and distracted and all over the place that you lose all of your energy very quickly and you don't accomplish anything. So Piñata Mind is you're on defense and you're allowing the world to happen to you, and you're not putting any filters in place to stop everything from coming at you. So let's talk about that. How do you overcome Piñata Mind? Well, there are 4 steps to it. The first step is you want to organize. And by organize, I mean you want to usually when I get in that state, it's because I have so many things going on in my mind that I feel like I've got all these different things I need to get done. So organize to me is what I call a brain dump, where I get a sheet of paper and I write down everything I'm thinking about in my brain. I clear the decks, clear the room. I write down everything. If I have a bunch of tasks that I need to do, I write them all down. If I have projects I need to work on, I write them all down so that when I'm done writing this list, and in some cases, it might be several pages of information, but I write it all down so I can empty it from my brain. I don't have to eat up space in my brain holding on to that information anymore. And I write it all down and organize it. And then when I organize it, I might look at it and say, all right, what on this list is urgent? What on this list is important? And what is urgent, things that are on fire are not necessarily important. Sometimes things that are urgent, you can delegate to somebody else to handle. Sometimes things that are urgent but not important, you can just let them go and not worry about them because it doesn't matter. It's not important. But if you can find things that are urgent and important and they're high value activities that you should be doing, those might be the first things to focus on, right? So the first thing is organize. The second thing is prioritize. And that's what I was just talking about, where you start to take your list and lay it out. Which of these things are the most important for me to do? Which of these things are going to move me closer to my vision for my life of who I want to be and what I want to be? Which of these things, when I do them, are going to move me closer to that? And I'm going to prioritize that and have a list. The next thing you want to do, so it's organize, prioritize, and then focus. So focus, this is where you want to have focus time, because when your brain gets to that point where it's out of control like it was and you're playing defense, you want to take steps to build incredible momentum going in the opposite direction. And the only way you can do that is to have great focus. If Bill Gates, one of the richest men in the world, and Warren Buffett, another one of the richest men in the world, they were asked, what is the one thing that has allowed you to be so successful? And both of them said, it's our focus. If you can focus for a period of time, you can do 2-3 times the amount of work you normally do if you're able to focus without distraction. So if you've got your priority list and you're saying these 1 or 2 things are what I need to do to feel good and get momentum and move forward, you want to focus. And when you focus, you want to close the door or go to a place where you won't be bothered. You want to turn off your phone, close all the windows on your computer, close down everything except what you need to work on to accomplish those tasks. Doing that is going to force you to be lasered in on what needs to be done. And don't fall into the trap of leaving your phone sitting there where you can see emails coming in or you see texts coming in. If you need to, turn the phone off and put it in a drawer somewhere until you're done. If you need to, go somewhere where you don't have a computer if you can't keep away from having your computer on for a period of time. Because every one of those distractions are going to interrupt your focus and keep you from getting momentum going in the right direction. Remember, we're trying to go from a defensive posture to being totally on offense and building momentum in our favor. So you're going to focus. No phone, no email, no nothing. None of that turned on. So you choose 1 or 2 items that you're going to attack. And then that's number 4 is attack. So you attack those items and you stay on them. And I would recommend you go at least 2 hours, because it takes a good 20 or 30 minutes to get into that focus where you're really honed in and able to work well. And for people who aren't used to doing that at all, it might take half an hour or 45 minutes. And once you get into that zone, you don't want to leave that zone so quickly. If you can do 3-4 hours, it's amazing how much momentum you can gain and how much you can get done. I've had times where I've gotten a full day's worth of work done in 2 or 3 hours because I was focused without interruptions. And it just shows you how much you're interrupted and how much your attention is diverted during the day. So that's what you want to do. So you have Piñata Mind. You want to organize, prioritize, focus, and attack. And the whole point is to have fulfillment in your life, you need to be doing things where you're spending time in your purpose. So hopefully when you're having that focus, you're spending time in your purpose. You also want to be doing things that are moving you closer to the vision that you've laid out for your life and your business. And sometimes the only way you can move towards that vision is to get a little selfish, shut out everybody else so that you can focus on the things that are important to you to move things forward. Those of us who are leaders and who are the main person in an organization, the last person we take care of is ourselves, because we're given to everybody else and always given, and we're the go-to person. And some of that we bring on ourselves by, I know sometimes I can be a bottleneck where my team comes to me because there's nowhere else to go for an answer. You sometimes have to be selfish and focus on yourself and work on yourself so you can develop that momentum, so you can get off of playing defense and onto playing offense when it comes to your mind and the way that you think. So that's the podcast for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you're going to take these strategies and use them, because I know you might call it something else, but everybody has brain spin at times. Everybody has piñata mind at times. And if you can have some tools in your tool belt to help you overcome them, get on offense, gain momentum, get out of a funk, and move towards the vision for your life, then you're going to be on your way to achieving fulfillment in your personal life and in your business life. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate all the support that everybody's giving me. And please, as always, go to iTunes, go to Stitcher, subscribe to the podcast. And if you enjoy it, tell a friend about it, leave a review, and by all means, go to the Facebook page and like the Facebook page so we can stay in touch with you. Have a great week, and we'll catch you again next time. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please subscribe to Student of Life at iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you go to for your favorite podcasts. Visit us online at studentoflifepodcast.com. That's studentoflifepodcast.com. We are on Facebook at Student of Life. Email us at joe@studentoflifepodcast.com. If you enjoyed the show, help us spread the word by telling someone you know about Student of Life. And please join us again next time. Thanks!